going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It, your movie podcast for reboots, remakes, sequels, adaptations, and everything that's been done and will be done again. As always, I am your host, Blake Schultz. With me is Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And this week, Thunderbolts is out. And in our fun ping pong match of whether the MCU is back or dead or back or dead or back or has a plan or doesn't have a plan, I have been on the stance that it never really left and has been just fine outside of a few,
Thing.
one or two Quantumanias aside. But either way, the Thunderbolts is here, which was easily post Endgame my most anticipated project because I always liked those comics
The
and those
street.
teams and it's in street level stuff. And I feel like whenever you pick a team of B-list characters, you get a chance to do things you wouldn't do with anybody else, whether
Gar-
that's super
Guardians 6.
violent.
Yeah. Yeah.
It, and it was also the most logical choice to me because my post Endgame, when everyone was like, "What's bigger than Thanos?" I was like, "Nothing." That's why you're all setting yourself
Go
up to be
down.
sad. You're
Yeah.
all planning, and I know Sony has it, but the correct answer was Norman Osborn should have bought the Avengers Tower. It should have been the Dark Avengers, and whoever was left should have had to have assembled against it. And when they announced Thunderbolts, I was like, "That is as close to that idea as we're gonna get." It should have all been about how bad the heroes were, and look at all the things, and the Ultrons, and the Thanos thing, and all that was bad. Now the real big bad guy is going to do his thing, and we didn't do any of that. Instead we had a real life criminal who we had to put away, and then get Robert Downey Jr. back again to figure multiverse stuff out.
To clean it all up.
No, it is, but it is interesting to kind of get here now at the end of Phase 5 with like what I think is now an incredibly clear direction of Fantastic Four, Avengers, Spider-Man stuff, Avengers, and then probably
And
X-Men.
then X-Men to death. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think, and we'll get into it after we talk about the movie a bit, but we should also talk about like the road here. And I think these phases, because I was trying to look this up this weekend. There's never really been an official like here's what each phase is about. We can kind of look back at it and be like, well, it was an assembly, and then it was an Ultron,
Yeah.
but it's not like each movie follows a theme. And my
No.
hot take is that this was never as connected as any of us thought, and it was never as deep, and the Infinity Stones don't show up that often. So we shouldn't
Yeah.
be mad. Personal taste aside, don't like what you don't like. I don't care, but don't be mad at things that are doing what they did before.
The same
Um,
thing. Yeah.
but what do you think about the Thunderbolts or Black Widow 2.5? 1.5, 1.5.
Hey, you're never going to get me to get angry about giving me more Florence Pugh. I will take it in droves. It's funny because I hate the fact that we're living in hyperbole and where everything has to be like, oh my God, this is the best thing since such and such, since Avengers Endgame. And I'm like, guys, we got Guardians 3 and Spider-Way No Way Home since Endgame. I'm confused what you're talking about. And so I don't like to big up one thing and poo-poo and crap on other things. But let me say this. Walking out of that theater, I did not know that I needed a mental health depression MCU film. But damn, I'm glad I got it because that's what this is, and it nails it. Like this is a really, really good film, and it's been a while since I've walked out of the theater for any of these MCU films because I liked Captain America very well, and I like the Marvels quite often, much more than the world is sort of like the poo-poo in that film. But Guardians was the last time that I got like I left the theater with like a gut punch of like emotional connection. And that's when these films work the best for me is when like yes, it does all the action blowing up stuff. I get to see some characters that I haven't seen in a while come back. But when you can kick me in the emotional strings, uh that's when I'm like, oh, that's a good film. That's a film that I'll start telling everybody else about like, oh, you need to see this or you need to see this. And this movie nailed that aspect of it in droves. I think Florence Pugh, she Marvel is very lucky that they got her before she became Florence Pugh, and now they can sort of like keep their hooks in her. Like, nope, we're going to sign you to an extension. You're going to be here forever.
Oh yeah,
You're
no,
not
no,
going
yeah, we
anywhere.
can't let her leave.
Um,
She's the best.
yeah, and this is her film. While it is the Thunderbolts film, there's a great assembly of folks around her. This is her vehicle, and it starts and begins with like Yelena's dealing with her history, her life, her shame. And sort of seeing these shame rooms sort of get put together as we bring in Sentry, who I know very little about, except for the fact that he is probably the best person to have a mental case film about, is because there's always two sides of Sentry. It's Sentry in the Void, and it's sort of dealing with this man who, what if you gave powers to somebody not Captain America, who was not all good, who actually had some trauma to him. And I was like, oh, this is playing with all the strings that I'm kind of wanted to play with in this world, but it still gets big. It still gets superhero and it still feels fun. We still live in the world. We're still playing with some of the ramifications that things had before. And I was like, this becomes this sort of perfect soup where we get to actually, I talked about it a little bit after the film, but we actually got to see a team form in a film. Usually we're getting pieces of them like, oh, you become who you are in one film, you become who you are in one film, and then we sort of come together and you guys are just forced together and we're just going to accept that you're the Avengers. Here, we get to sort of see them go through their gross stuff, their murky stuff, their grimy stuff, and then come out on the other side. It's like, all right, you guys went through hell and back, literally. Yeah, you guys should be a team. And this war, go forth and be the new whatever. Well, spoilers for folks who haven't seen it, but the new Avengers.
Yeah, I think
I had a ball.
I think the best way to talk about this movie is to just kind of dive into the spoilers. So that from here on out, deal with it, I guess. You've been
Yeah.
warned. Like, but look, if TikTok can put the opening credit scene moments after the movie is released, then we can talk about it in our podcast that comes out the weekend after it's done. That's how I feel about it. Um, I think it's interesting when I look at it because I also hate the Since This game because I don't know, it promotes this weird narrative that, like, oh God, it just hasn't been that good. And, Captain America was not the best, but it was fine. Deadpool and Wolverine was awesome. I think Marvel's also wasn't the best, but it was fine. Guardians 3 was awesome. And then Ant-Man 3, which is not a good film. Um,
Correct.
and then we backtrack before that, and it's like Wakanda Forever is a whole different kind of depressing movie,
It's a
but it's
polarizing
still
film.
good.
Yeah, like
Yeah, like
I, I thought that's the film that I sat the most with in comparison because they both deal with depression. I would like to say that I think I like, no, I know I like this one more because it's dealing with not real depression.
fake
When you take,
depression.
yes,
Yeah.
when you bring in something that's real, it sits differently for me than I think. It feels like it's cheap, a cheap trick, as opposed to like, all right, I've earned this a little bit more because someone didn't actually have to die in real life for this to occur.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because there's another one in the Phase 4 as I'm kind of just going back through this list of like Love and Thunder for me was fine, not the best, but like not as bad as people say. And then Multiverse of Madness also I'm kind of like, yeah, it was good. This movie though, like Doctor Strange was our like quote unquote horror movie in the MCU, and I think this whole movie is giving Silent Hill 2 vibes. And almost every horror beat in this was infinitely scarier than the Doctor Strange ones. You've got like just the look of the void with his weird little beady
Those
white
eyes.
eyes.
Yeah.
Whenever they're in the dream moments and Yelena gets wrapped in the tree, or they like do that Nightmare on Elm Street thing where like the wall comes from behind her, everything in any of these like vaults or these interconnected shame rooms,
Hmm.
it really is like Silent Hill, Resident Evil, just welcome to this weird, creepy place where you have to deal with sadness. Um,
Yeah.
so I thought that all hit. And then we go back. No Way Home is obviously great. Eternals is, I think, fine. Shang-Chi is great. And Black Widow is great. So, like, it's not that it's, whatever. I'm not here
Yeah.
to compare each one of these. There's so many now.
There's
It's not
so
even,
many now. And I
it's
get it.
impossible.
I get it.
But
I think where a lot of this comes in is some of these TV shows too, the quality of them have not hit on all of them. So it just got a little murky. I think there's more in this phase than had ever been in any phase before, and not all of it is up to the standard. But now, granted, you and I talked about this before. Phase one does not hold a candle to phase three, so I think we're sort of have to understand that we're resetting everything, and so your expectation should not be like, oh, everything has to be quality of phase three from this point on. That's just not going to
yeah,
happen.
I just like maybe we're getting older. I feel like I've been doing it since these movies came out, where like Cap
Hmm.
1 wasn't that, I loved it, but people were like, whatever. And Iron Man 2 was whatever, and Iron Man 3 was
Same.
whatever, and then Guardians was amazing, and then Ant-Man was amazing, and then Ultron was whatever, and Iron Man 3 was whatever, and this whole time I've been like, but they're all great. Um, except for Thor 2 and The
Agreed.
Incredible Hulk and Quantumanium. But For the Thunderbolts
Yeah,
itself, I think you nailed everything. The mental health stuff in it, especially on a second watch, I saw it this afternoon again, is like it's so well done. And for like a movie, there were still like kids in my theater, and it like we really get like pretty dark. Like there's a
it
whole
does.
sequence where Yelena is like passed out next to a bathtub with booze and then forces herself to drink the booze.
Yeah,
And before
yeah,
that, when she meets Sentry, their whole conversation, he's like, sometimes I get depressed. And she's like, oh, totally. Yeah, I also think about suicide frequently. Like it's
just
the most
push
like
all that down.
push it deep down. It's so like
I
in
want
any other context, we'd be like, this is the most unhealthy, problematic view of mental health. But they tee it up so well that it even kind of makes Yelena, I don't want to say a bad person, but like she has these bad moments. Like even when the whole team is like despondent and she's like,
hmm
Ava, you're a bitch. John Walker, your entire family left you.
Your
You're a
family left
bad
you.
dad. Yeah. And you're just like,
And he was
whoa.
like, well, geez, that was harsh.
Even the audience, like
Yeah.
we watched during COVID, we
But
watched
it,
John Walker decapitate someone with a shield. And even at that moment, we were like, Yelena, that
yeah,
was a lot. Like,
that's harsh. Oh, that's a lot.
and
Yeah.
we never
But it comes together
apologized.
well, like you feel like we don't. We don't. But it works because, like, obviously, most of these people are bad people. Like, Ghost shot a person at the beginning of this movie, and we're like, she's
Also,
an Avenger
something
from
we
this point
don't do a
on.
lot of the MCU, just a straight up headshot with a bullet hole and blood. And like, man, say what you want about this version of Taskmaster. I know that it's not the one everyone wanted. I know that they kind of just made her die at Winter Soldier and Black Widow, but that character deserved so much better than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
however, also, if I had to pick one character to shoot in the face,
It would be that one. Yeah.
like,
I'm like, if I'm walking on the board and working on the script, I'm like, Taskmaster can go. But what I loved about this is that we had Yelena doing the stuff of saying, like, maybe you should push it down. Maybe you should push your feelings down. And then having that full circle moment. And like my two favorite scenes in this movie both involve her. One of them actually made me tear up a little bit is when she and Alexia are talking and she's like, when she calls him daddy and I'm so alone, I was like, whoa, Jesus Christ. And she delivers that so well that I was like, ouch. And then the other is like, I love the fact that their first instinct is inside the void. It's like, we have to go fight the void. And then what the actual way to do it is like, no, we need to just go hold him and say that you're not alone in this depression. And I was like, Jesus, why am I feeling so many feels out of an MCU movie? But here we are. Open up the summer with depression. Let's go.
it is it is interesting because I've seen a few people be like, "Oh, we do another like Power of Friendship," and I'm like, "Well, the Guardians of the Galaxy, a movie that everyone except me is like it's one of the single greatest things Marvel's ever made," and I was like, "Yes, we chase a purple rock with a bland villain, and
The
then they
dance,
all can
you hate
hold
the dance.
hands."
Yeah, you get
I don't mind the
the dance
dance
off.
sequence. I don't mind that. But it's just that Ronan sucks. It's just that Ronan
hmm
sucks
hmm
and the MacGuffin is boring. And if it
Yeah.
wasn't the fact that it was a Power Stone and our first Infinity Stone and there wasn't a dope ass soundtrack and all those characters weren't awesome and all the
Yeah.
other reasons why the movie is great, we'd be like, neat, they held hands and zapped him.
The ending
Big
of the landing
threat.
of that one is a bit clunky, especially in comparison to the next two. You have Ego, and then you have the third one. Like, yeah, that one doesn't sort of hold
So
up.
I don't think it's fair to be like this is the power of friendship because like it kind of all of that's what like a team is like in a
Correct.
weird
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and we spend so much more time with this one on Bob's mindset that like he's useless and
hmm
kind of to watch everyone instead who like arguably at the top of the movie were like he's useless
Yeah.
to even kind of
Like
have
kept being
them.
like, just get behind me. I'm gonna take you and just get behind me, Bob. Bob, stop getting in the way.
Yeah, like John Walker's pretty blunt about it.
hmm
Ghost kind of just ignores him, and
And
Yelena, who
Yelena
like
gets
does
into
care
like bigger
about him,
sister mode, but it's still like, shut up, little brother, get
but
behind me.
yeah, she never gives him a chance.
Right.
And then Red Guardian and Winter Soldier don't really interact with him
They don't
until
even,
he
yeah,
is
because
like
he's
the
gone by
Sentry.
the time, yeah, he's gone by the time that the two of them come around.
But I think that that's an interesting way to kind of then get to that moment because it's even Bucky who clicks with it first when they're watching him beat the hell out of the void, and eventually Bucky's like, "No, this is all
No, this isn't
wrong."
right. Yeah, this is
And
wrong.
it's something I kind of like the sequence. The whole third act has a lot of great throwaway moments that I'm like, oh, if this movie had 30 extra minutes, I wouldn't be mad. Because there's even that one beat where he like wraps the cloth around him and Yelena, and he's like, you just got to get used to it. We don't die here. The pain just gets worse forever. And I was like, that is
That's a
terrifying
that
because you zapped a little girl into the void who in theory is just in searing endless pain.
she's somewhere right. She's somewhere in just torturous pain right
At
now.
least Thanos was like, I'm going to kill half the universe, and then they're just gone.
They won't feel
They
anything. They're
won't
just gone.
feel anything. It'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Yeah.
Don't
This
worry
is far
about
worse.
it.
You've got people going through just cycles of torture.
You just have a dude who's not going to therapy being like, I'm going to stick you in my like Hellraiser meets the Cube meets
Yeah.
Sod box. And
And
there's other rooms you can get to, and they're all
all
worse.
it's very it's funny because that was very that A24 commercial that they did, that whole shame room sequence. I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about. Because this going from room to room in the way that it's shot, I'm like, oh, this is very artsy. Like everything all where at once, that movie, it felt like that type of like,
No,
oh God, this is
that
nuts.
that movie did everything Chronicle thought it was doing back in
Yes.
2012.
Yeah.
That's my hot take. That's that old movie everyone liked but me also. And but I really liked that Bucky also as a throwaway line. The reason I bring all that up is he has a quick like, "What did you see?" "Oh, I've got a great pass, so I'm good." And for him also to kind of be the one to be like, "Oh, we're doing this wrong." I don't really need to see like Bucky kill Tony Stark or not Howard Stark again, but for
Yeah.
him to kind of for the guy who we've seen deal with his past the most,
There's
connect the
something that
dot
clicked.
that
Correct.
isn't. I think we could have done like I don't know what it is, and maybe it's nothing, and it's better that it's just there for us to kind of like digest. But I like that he was the one to be like, "Oh, guys, no, no, no! I did therapy with Sam. Sam and I did therapy. We don't do
Right.
this. We don't do this part."
So I looked up some director stuff about this, and the director's like, we had shame rooms for all of them. We had shame rooms for Ghost. We had shame rooms for and Ghost shame room sound awesome. It was like her being at an orphanage when she was younger, and them just ignoring her, and so she just always wanted to be invisible all the time. I was like, oh God, that would be dark. But it was those type of things. It was Alexi was in the gulag, but what he said was when they were going through there, they thought about putting their shame rooms in there when they went into the void, but they were like, nope, this is about escaping Bob, so we're going to do all of his shame rooms and just sort of pull those out. But they had, I guess, schematics and done animation on all of theirs, but timing wise, it just didn't make sense, and it seemed like they should just go through Bob's world first. So I was like, no,
It
that is the right choice, but I would have kind of have liked to have seen it.
it would have been cool. The pacing would have been weird, and I would
Yeah,
have. I know me well enough in movies. We saw Yelena like figure out how to get to Bob. I would have been so annoyed if I had to watch all of them also be like,
go through there. Yeah,
"Oh," like.
yeah.
But it is, I was thinking about it this time when I watched it, and all the Red Room stuff is awesome and sad, and we've seen so much of it now
Hmm.
that a part of me was like, we could have maybe cut this in half and given us at least Ghost because we
Hmm.
know a lot about Alexi. We've seen, I don't know what
Maybe
else there
because
is to see with
Ghost, yeah,
Bucky.
because in Ant-Man, Ghost doesn't get a lot of screen time for us to know who she is. So in here, we're just dropping her in and kind of, at least with Black Widow, we got to spend a lot of time with both Alexis. So yeah, to your point, I agree. She probably would be the one that'd be like, give me a little bit more on her.
It also
Um,
would have been interesting because like it's all by touch until like so she never is touched. It would have been kind of cool to be like, well, how does he get her? It almost would have worked well before they go in to find a way of being like, this is the one person I can't seem to like touch or stop or fight.
I
So
can't
like
get her
zap,
because she keeps phasing
yeah.
in. Yeah, yeah,
But speaking of the fight, it's such an interesting movie to not have a traditional big giant action
action
set
sequence.
piece.
Yeah,
I'm glad we
yeah.
didn't because I think a big Marvel problem that goes all the way back
Third
to
acts.
I would say Guardians is third acts that are just like, hey, here's a big fun character moment, giant set piece, we're done.
Even Winter Soldier,
Um,
and I love Winter Soldier. It's my favorite, probably my favorite one. That third act gets massive considering how
oh, when the bullets were gonna rain
everything
down
else
on
just so street
individuals.
level and so small.
Yeah, it's something that definitely came out of like the first Avengers movie where it was like everything now has to be this big and we never really got small again, so I liked that. But the oneer, this one shot of Sentry just smoking the Thunderbolts for however long that it went for was awesome. And to do it in a minute for as long as they do, to kind of give everyone this like TMNT versus Shredder one at a time moment and see everybody's like one-on-one battle and culminates up, down, left, right. My favorite one is Bucky like taking off his
He's about
shirt
to do something.
and then just nothing. My other favorite that's really small is Bucky does like an old school Winter Soldier combo where he like drops the knife and he picks his gun and like points it at his chin. And he's got this look on his face like, got it. And he's just not, there's no one in
Yeah,
that line of sight.
yeah,
Also great to have Sentry fight a bunch of people, as like Yelena puts it, like we all just punch and shoot.
yeah.
And kind of then throwing them
Like,
at Sentry was great.
yeah.
Um,
And it's such a
because it
great,
wouldn't.
it's such a cool line that he has with Yelena. I mean, with I forgot her name, Val. When Val essentially says he's a god, and he throws it back at her. He's like, "Well, you're not a god." And he's like, "Well, you said that I'm stronger than all the Avengers, and there's at least one god on that team." So, and then just to see his power set, I'm like, "Oh yeah," because that immediately made me think, "Oh, they can't fight. They can't have a big battle in this movie because then I won't believe it." Like I will no longer believe it if they try to show that
Oh
these
yeah,
guys are the
no,
ones taking on Sentry. Yeah,
no, you can't. I mean, we see it a lot in a lot of those movies where it gets that big, and you're like, well, now what?
yeah. Like Harley Quinn
And it
taking on a witch is like, okay, guys, I
right,
don't believe this.
and it goes on both ways, right? There's a reason things are street level and cosmic. Was Thor gonna fight Kingpin, and we're gonna have
Right.
D'Onofrio be like, Thor, when I was a boy,
And I was
my
a
father,
boy.
oh my god, he shot me with lightning. Like it just doesn't like
It
work.
doesn't work.
It's
Right.
um so I think it worked well. And it's why you have a lot of those characters outside of like your Homelander, but your Superman, your Hyperion, almost every cosmic god level has to have a like, well, I'm not going to kill you because why?
Right.
Um, or they need kryptonite.
Hmm.
And to kind of make, his kryptonite is very much his like
His
mental
inner
health.
his inner id. Yeah.
And I liked it's also just very obviously it's very depression, it's very neurodivergent coded, but for him to be like at least one god, if like it sounds like someone who's like sat there and been like, okay, well the Avengers are like a
So there's
soldier and
there's
an
one
Iron Man.
God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very like I like it's something I would do as a
Yeah.
neurodivergent person where I'm like, I need a god to be in the Avengers. Um no, everything worked really well. And I think, we've kind of mixed it in as we've gone, but like why is this relevant today? What are we
Mhm.
doing different in this universe? And the answer is everything. And I think, it's more and more relevant that people are talking about depression and mental health
Mhm.
issues and seeing it reflected in a movie like this that it doesn't really give an easy answer. Like we
Mm-mm.
don't really like punch away his sadness, and there's never any like just give him Lexapro. There's no,
No, it's kind of just
um,
like we're here if you ever want to talk about this. Like if we're here for you when this stuff comes back up, you are here. We are a family. We all have our mess. We are good to talk about this when we can. That's sort of like what we kind of got out of this. Which is probably the correct thing to do. Because
yeah, I
I think also in a time this film is very useful to the time that we're kind of in. There are a lot of people going through a lot of things right now, so I think this film also hits on like, hey, maybe I just need to talk to somebody. Like even if it's not a shrink, I just need to talk to someone.
yeah, and it does a good job, I think, of humanizing all these people that we've seen like at their
Be bigger than
worst.
life. Yeah.
Um, because even like U.S. Agent, like I remember when we did Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we talked about it on that podcast, where I was like, I like the I mean, it's almost the Nuremberg defense. I did exactly what you told me to do. And,
Hmm.
there's I thought you can sit there and talk about that philosophy forever, but I sort of dug that he was like, guys, I only did what you sent me there to do. It's not my fault that you got on tape and hated the results of it, but all you did was yell and mock me. And he's still an asshole and egotistical and like not a good person, but he does keep showing up. Like I think that's something they do really well with all of these characters. There's no real reason for them to keep not they give everyone a chance in the vault to abandon each other and no one takes it. And they give everyone a chance to abandon that little block of New York and no one takes it. Everyone always shows back up of their own volition, which I think is a really cool thing to have and something that they kind of make it seem like Alexi taps into very quickly when he's like, you guys don't see what I see. This is a team. This is a group of people that can do something great. And I think that's a great moment for him too. But on top of the other things that's different, this is a movie that's very different for the MCU as an MCU movie. We talked a little bit about all of the A24 people and everything else. So it is such a unique visual style and writing style and like structure of it all. And so many other MCU movies have been like, we're a Marvel movie, but we're this one first. And I feel like this is a rare one where I'm like, oh, no, no, this is the most non-MCU MCU movie. And it's interesting on the second rewatch. It's like the third thing Yelena says is, I feel like I'm in a void. And then we watch her fight in that
Hmm.
hallway. Half that hallway's lit and half of it isn't. And I was just like, ooh, it's like good film school artsy
Yeah, it
directing. She's
is.
almost walking
Flash
in.
forwarding, yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh,
It's
this is great.
it's funny when I was kind of writing my notes down today, I was sitting here, I was like, oh, Blake and I used to always talk about this because this is sort of going to do films like, hey, we're going to be the cop drama or we're going to be the political thriller. And some of them, like I think Winter Soldier is actually a political thriller, but they always be like Ant-Man's the bank heist. And I'm like, you do that for 20 minutes and then you kind of like an upward superhero film. This is the first time where I was like, oh, you guys just took the thesis of a story of like mental health and just structured an entire film around it. You guys nailed what you guys were going for as far as being an still a superhero film, but this version of a superhero film. And I think out of all of them, I think this is the one that handles it probably the best from start to finish.
Yeah, it feels the least probably Marvel-y one that I can think of.
The
Um,
only other one I would say is Eternals, but because that's just
yeah,
completely different.
that's
Yeah,
way yeah, that's a good point. That one's a
yeah,
big left turn.
yeah.
Um, but the other touch I liked is that it's cloudy all day. Like it's
Hmm.
like a depressing day in New York.
Yes, it's gray the
Um,
whole time. Yeah.
and it's weird because I even remember we were like doing I can't remember what episode we were talking about, but it was like it's just always bright. Like we never really go outside of like Ultron to other
Hmm.
countries in times of day. It's either like bright and sunny or it's like
Hmm.
nighttime. This is one of the first times where I'm like, oh, this is just like everyone's having like a bum day.
Hmm.
But I also appreciated that even like Val wasn't that evil. Like she kind of was doing shitty things, but was like, yeah, the Avengers are gone. And like
Right.
everyone else is doing this. And
Yeah.
running through it quickly, I don't want to get too much time on the like, where were all of the other characters? But I think they've actually kind of done an oddly good job. I mean, we don't really know where Shang-Chi is. We
No.
know all the Eternals are broken up.
Hmm.
Spider-Man's presumably just at college. Doctor
Right.
Strange is in another universe. Thor's off world. Wakanda, like Shuri is rebuilding a country.
Yeah.
Ant-Man, I guess, is around. The Guardians are gone. The Marvels are gone. Deadpool and Wolverine are not around. And then you have all the
Yeah.
original Avengers. So it's like outside of the kids and like Moon Knight, there really isn't anyone in New York except for like maybe Daredevil. But like, he's a devout Catholic. He's dealing with shame boxes every day. So he's fine. But so I think they do a good job of kind of handling the like, no, it really isn't anyone around. Even Nick
Shane
Fury
Box.
is off world. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only one that is sort of, oh, because of where we're currently at, because we're now establishing that Daredevil's in this world, that's the only one that sort of sits off like, I kind of buck up against what Daredevil is doing, but that's fine, whatever. We've made that TV. I've sort of learned in life to sort of separate the TV from the film unless they force us to. But
You could also make the
so,
argument that anyone who came to help was just zapped into something
yeah,
and then
right.
like
Like that whole. No, I mean, I think the only thing I say was just that they were. I do love that they at least kept the thread of Captain America, bringing up the Red Hulk, and just sort of keeping that through line going. So now there's at least a beginning, middle, and end. We can see the road that they're sort of heading to with whatever we get
yeah.
to for the Fantastic Four.
And the idea of Sam being like, no, they're not the
No,
Avengers.
they're not
I'm
the
gonna go do
Avengers. I
something.
like that. And so we're not
Um,
going to have like like four different subsectors or groups probably by the time we get to it.
I like it. I'd like to see him and Bucky talk about it because I feel like
They're the connecting
outside,
thread. Yeah.
I feel like outside of like Bucky, like, or rather, he would be fine with Bucky making a team, and it's just the like John Walker and
It's a
the
murderer. Like that's a
yeah.
guy who we saw
We decided
decapitate
not to
somebody.
do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be really curious what his logic is, especially since in Captain America he was sort of like, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
and there was a time jump in that post credit scene too. I think we
Yeah.
hopped forward a bit.
Four, 14 months, I think they said. So like a year and some
Great.
change. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll
Um,
have now we know the FF is going to somehow get to our universe. We don't know how or why or what happens to them.
and that post
Uh,
credits I found out was shot by the Russos. So that was a
yep,
Russo shot
they're
post credit
back
sequence. Yeah, they're
doing what
around. They're
they
should never stop doing again.
no, that's what we learned. We learned that. But clearly, for all of our, for not mine, because I think it has never really existed, but Marvel superhero fatigue, the movie has leapt forward 162.1 million, kicking off the box office, kicking off the summer.
Hmm.
Pretty good. Pretty good. I think it's already made its budget back with that number.
And I think for a film that doesn't really have a bona fide superhero in it, like there's a bunch of like the misfits, that's an impressive number to have for this type of film. I mean, it's basically off of history, whatever the Marvel Cinematic Universe does, and Florence Pugh, which she's
Yeah,
not a box office name, but
she's getting there.
I was she's getting pretty close.
She's getting there. Yeah, I loved it. I think it's the strongest one of the phase. Whatever we're on now, 5 as we go into 6. But that is our
As
show,
we
everyone.
enter six.
Yeah, with Fantastic Four, which seems there was a number
Which is
situation they
odd
could have
to
made work there.
break that. Yeah.
Either way, numbers are fake and they don't matter. But what does matter is subscribing to our show and sharing it with your friends. And you can follow us on Hollywood Already Did It on TikTok and Twitter and Facebook. And Terrence has the YouTube show Hollywood Already Did It, where he does all of our TV reviews and trailer reactions. And we will see everybody next time.
Later.